So first things up, we're gonna talk about Until Dawn's remake studio. Now, I don't know if you guys are remember this studio or remember the situation regarding Until Dawn remake, but I'm kind of gonna give you just a little bit of a backstory quickly before we get into it. So the Until Dawn remake came out, and it was a remake for a video game that nobody asked for. It was one of those situations where it's like, why are we remaking this game that's not even that old? And then they unveiled the game, and when they unveiled it, nobody liked it. Everybody thought it looked absolutely terrible. Come to find out, it's because they used a brand new engine. And in this new engine, they didn't really transfer the style and the look of the first game into the second game. They tried to claim that it was just not that it was impossible, it's just it was very difficult or whatever to do so. But the reason why the first Until Dawn was so not beloved, but was like it was liked because of the setting and the atmosphere of the game, right? Especially in its darkest moments when you had the blizzard around you. You had moments where you felt that kind of loneliness, that kind of dread. But then the remake came out, and the remake was basically like the sun simulator. Like the game was so bright, it didn't have those same kind of dark moments. And they basically said that they couldn't transfer that level, that level of, I guess, darkness from the old game to the new game. I don't really know why that is. I feel like it was just excuses, really. At the end of the day. But what I will say is that one of the most glaring changes between the two games was the way that the NPCs were reacting to their environments, which I feel like is very important when you're trying to tell a narrative story like that. Because if any of you guys play those kind of games, they're all narrative. The entire thing is narrative, right? So if you're gonna have a narrative story, you really need the characters to sell it as best as they possibly can. Now, with the remake, they didn't really do that. The remake, the characters would never even react to the cold, let alone like certain things that would happen. For example, in the first game, when the character is walking through the blizzard, they will hold themselves and shake their hands to try to make themselves warm. Little details like that. They completely removed that in the remake. They didn't even bother making the characters have that same level of reaction like in the first game. So it was a very lazily made remake. And people were defending the game because they, a lot of just people that are just chilling or whatever. But they were defending the game. They were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of changes. Typical shit, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that brings us to this now where it's officially been announced that Ballistic Moon has actually closed down. They are the creator of the recent Until Dawn remake. The public has been left without an official farewell and exploration from the leadership regarding the move. It appears that the life of this Until Dawn developer has come to the end without much fanfare. So they haven't even told anybody. That's crazy, bro. Imagine closing down your studio and not even having a statement for the people that actually did buy your game, for the people that actually did support your game. I'm almost positive that the Until Dawn remake also had some issues that the developer did not even actually address. So are we going to just close the game? Are we just going to close the studio down without addressing the problems the game has? The studio was originally viewed as a fresh start for several industry veterans who have spent years crafting cinematic scares, and Ballistic Moon was acquired by Sony in 2023. Founded in 2019, the developer was led by Duncan Kershaw, Neil McEwen, and Chris Lamb. All three had previously major roles at Supermassive Games, the team that invented this specific style of choice-based game horror. By the setting on their own, they aimed to refine the butterfly effect formula and prove that they could deliver high-end, terrifying experiences using the latest technology. But then, according to Insider Gaming, legal paperwork filed with the British government in early February 2026 confirms that the studio has actually been dissolved. While the team was full of talent, the Until Dawn remake turned out to be their last. Although the core narrative was a hit in the past, Ballistic Moon's version rebuilt the experience in the Frostbite engine, adding new lighting effects and changing the camera system. Both of which, by the way, are absolutely criticisms that this game has received. The lighting and the camera changes, not even on top of everything else. These are two things that nobody asked to be changed, and it got changed anyway. And I'm not surprised that they shut down because of the lack of success. Unfortunately, these technical upgrades were not enough to win anybody over. They're not even upgrades. They're not even upgrades. I'm not even kidding. Like, if you look at gameplay side by side, you are going to think that one is a downgrade, and I'm guaranteeing you it's not the original. The original is not the downgrade. It's going to be the remake. But anyway, the remake received lukewarm critical reception, currently sitting at an open critic score of 69. Critics and fans noted several significant flaws that held the experience back. Many players felt the new visuals actually stripped away the creepy atmosphere of the original by trying too hard to be realistic. Additionally, the decision to swap out the cinematic fixed camera angles for a modern third-person view was seen by some as a mistake that ruined the claustrophobic feeling of the mountain setting. The biggest hurdle for the game, however, may have been its price and the timing of its release. Many consumers were unwilling to pay $60 for a remake of a game that wasn't even a decade old, especially since the original was easily available for much less money. This resulted in a launch that was described as abysmal. According to data from True Trophies, the player count on PlayStation 5 during its first week was somehow 28% lower than the launch of Concord, a shooter they famously taken offline just 2 weeks after it arrived. Guys, this game had 28% less players in its launch week than Concord. And you know what's even sadder? Concord, I feel like, had even a lesser customer group or customer capability. So if you're 30% less than Concord, you might as well just give up, bro. Just give up. But I guarantee you they spent good amount of money on this remake. Probably not as much as typical because it's a remake after all. But they still, they definitely spent money on this thing. So there was no way they were going to come back from that. As the sales failed to meet expectations, the studio began to crumble from within. The decline happened in waves, starting with layoffs in September 2024. That saw 40 people lose their job. And then following the game's release in October, another 20 were let go in December. While there was initial talks with Sony about providing additional funding to keep the studio running and support the game with patches, those funds never materialized. By March, Insider Gamer reporting that insiders claim Ballistic Moon was effectively closed down, with only the founders and perhaps a couple of other staff members still on payroll. I remember reporting on that, by the way. I remember talking about that. So here we are. We've come full circle, ladies and gentlemen, where, as I've talked about before, anytime you see massive layoffs from a studio, if it's not a gigantic studio, like something like from EA, for example, if it's not a gigantic studio, chances are those massive layoffs, they're just there to try to ride the game off into the sunset, meaning like whoever's left behind is going to ensure the death of the game. We literally just saw it happen with Highguard, where they said that they were firing damn near almost everybody at the studio, but that whoever's left is going to continue making content for the game. Who the fuck believed that? I don't know anybody that believed that. Those last few people that were left at Wildlight Entertainment, they were there to sunset the game. They were not there to work on content for the game. That's what they told you because they didn't want to take the L publicly right off the bat, but they're just there to kill the game. It's only a matter of time, So anyway, well, that's basically it for this game. RIP to Ballistic Moon. Kind of sad that it had to go down this way, but that's just kind of how it goes, I suppose. We got Adair Soto with it too, and the remake Wendigo, they removed the blood face. Bro, they fucked it all up. Let's just leave it at that. They fucked it all up, and that's basically it.